Alright, here we are with a bit of a random video, very random. Um, but I can't lie, I saw uh, in Maximilian's stream, he was talking about his favorite fighting game of all time, right? And now that really made me realize I have a channel about fighting games, and I never talked about my favorite fighting game of all time. Very weird that I did that, but I mean, here we are. I feel like I want to talk about it now. I don't think I'm gonna make a tier list. Maybe one day I will, but I'm not here to rank every fighting game I've ever played because they're all, mainly all of them are good in their own way. Even if the game has like bad netcode or something, the game itself. I'm not here to really factor in netcode or something. I'm just here to talk about what I think the best fighting games are, or at least what I think my favorite fighting game is. I might talk about what I think the best fighting game is, and then what my favorite fighting game is, because those are two different things. Like the best fighting game and what I think my favorite is are two completely different things. So here's one thing. What, in this definition, and what I'm talking about here, what is a fighting game? We have to talk about what is a fighting game, because some people may have different definitions for it, right? So I'm going to try to keep this as non-biased as possible on what a fighting game is, right? What most fighting game players would tell you a fighting game is. So a fighting game really is a game where you play the game. And I know it's like, what does that mean, right? It is a game where you do every little decision, right? You literally could play the game 100%. That's why fighting games are pretty unique, is that, they're probably the only game where you literally play every single aspect of it 100%, And I feel like that's what a fighting game is. Something that you have 100% control over in every single regard, right? That being said, right? It also, I feel like for a fighting game to be a fighting game, it has to have a certain level of skill attached to it. Not to sound, royal or anything, trying to, make other games sound easy. But, yeah, I think a fighting game has to have a certain level of skill attached to it. So, therefore, like, games like, I mean, this is obvious, right? Games like, I don't know, a boxing game, right? Any, like, sports game, they don't count. That's obvious, right? They're sports games. And this might be controversial, but a lot of arena fighters don't count. They are arena fighters for a reason, okay? So if you don't play fighting games, you probably don't know this, but fighting games and arena fighters are two different things, right? Arena fighters would be games like Naruto, Demon Slayer, stuff like that, right? And they're arena fighters because you are kind of like controlling the character in third person, It's not really. I know that these games have tournaments, right? But they're not really like on the same level as normal fighting games, I guess. Not to ruffle anyone's feathers here, but like I'm just trying to like get the most clear definition of a fighting game here. All the games you see in this video are fighting games, and games like Naruto Storm are always very, Demon Slayer and Naruto are always very, like, they're very hard to describe, right? Because on one hand, you have easier games like Demon Slayer, stuff like that. But on the other hand, you have very, very hard and very complicated arena fighters like Gundam Versus. So, arena fighters are very hard because normal fighting games, they follow, rules. They're all, when you play a normal fighting game, you know what you're getting yourself into, right? But for example, let's say like a Demon Slayer player plays like Gundam EX Versus. It would be such a skill difference. Like it would be so jarring to see. It would be weird, right? But if a Street Fighter player went to Guilty Gear, there would be a lot of things they have to learn, but they would understand the basic aspect of it all, So that's why, for me personally, I don't really count arena fighters as fighting games, but for the sake of this video, arena fighters do count in specific cases. For example, no one's gonna play the One Punch Man game or Jump Force. Those games don't really count. But like a game like Naruto Storm, it does have a competitive scene. My Hero One's Justice has one. No matter if you think those games are easy or not, that's up to you. But those games do have competitive scenes. But you wouldn't count like a sports game, right? Like the old boxing games or UFC. Those aren't fighting games. Those are sports games. I have to make that. I mean, maybe on some rare occasion you'll see a fighting game player play an arena fighter, but to this day I have never seen a fighting game player play a sports game and like compete in it. I don't even know if those games have tournaments. So I know there's a lot of people who and I saw this recently, there's some people, I mean, obviously they're very, very casual, but there's some people that think that WWE games are fighting games, right? And when you're at this casual, like when you're casual like this, I feel like the definition of fighting games is two people fighting each other, right? Two or more people fighting each other. And that's why I'm dedicating this portion of the video to describe what a fighting game is. Because if you're a casual player, you probably think a fighting game is just two or more people fighting each other in any regards, right? That's not how it works. At least, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say, that's not how it works at all. But a fighting game is pretty much what you're seeing on the screen here: Street Fighter, Guilty Gear. But there's so many, that's the thing, right? I can't put them all in this video because there's so many. Like, Tekken is a 3D fighter. It is not an arena fighter, but it is a 3D fighter. Completely different than Street Fighter. But it's a fighting game, right? Yeah. If you're a casual and you think a fighting game is something with just two people fighting each other, most fighting game players will say a game like WWE or a game like UFC are sports games, not fighting games, okay? There's a very clear difference. And especially with sports games like UFC and WWE, those games are normally, the winner is usually determined with pure luck. For example, if you, and I have played these games before, if you don't know, those games do not have health bars. Those games literally, for example, in UFC games, you can get hit once and lose the entire match. The way you win in those games is completely random, and yes, there are some situations in those games where you can win. Where it's easier to win, like on a counter hit or something, but for the most part, winning is completely random, and there's no health bar, there's no set thing. It's hard to really count that as a fighting game, and not to mention they are incredibly simple. I don't think a game being easy has much to do with it being a fighting game, but those games are simple to a point where there's not much player expression, you know. I feel like player expression is a big part of uh, fighting games in general, and while some fighting games don't have a lot of it, they normally always have some to a degree. Games like WWE and UFC have none at all, right? They have zero player expression, and that's a big part as well. Um, so now to get that out of the way, are arena fighters fighting games? Some of them technically are. Are sports games fighting games? No, not at all. Now, there's one last thing here. Are games like Smash Bros, are they fighting games? And it is going to be very hard because some people strongly think that they are not. And for this video specifically, when I'm talking about the best fighting game, I will not be including Smash Bros. Games. Because if you don't know, fighting game players normally classify Smash Bros. As a platform fighter. Two separate things, right? There's platform fighters, there's arena fighters, and there's fighting games, you know. Traditional fighting games, like what you're seeing here. So, Smash Bros., while it is considered a fighting game, and, for example, there are some Smash Bros. Players that play Guilty Gear, like what you're seeing here. They are two different things. And I feel like, no matter how you feel about fighting games, I feel like even if you're a Smash Bros. Player, you can agree, like whether you think it's a fighting game or not, you can agree that they are two different things. Normal fighting games and Smash fighting games, which is why they are usually classified as platform fighters and not fighting games. Because obviously games like Smash Bros. Are way easier in certain aspects, but in other aspects they're just as hard, if not harder, right? Me personally, if I'm gonna be honest, I think the only platform fighter that counts as a fighting game is Smash Bros. I don't think multiversus counts. I think multiversus is way too goofy, honestly. I don't think Brawlhalla counts, and I don't think. There are indie Smash Bros. Games, like Smash Brothers clones, that are pretty competitive, but they're just not big enough. But technically, all of these games are platform fighters. It's just that me personally, I just don't think they like can compare to Smash Bros. Whether it's Ultimate or Melee, I just don't think they compare. But yes, those games generally are easier than fighting games for the average person to just pick up and play. However, to be competitive in those games, it does require a lot. And some of these things you don't even need to play normal fighting games. So, for the sake of this video, I will not be including arena fighters or platform fighters, and definitely not sports games, obviously, but I do just want to say that those games normally are classified as fighting games, at least some of them. But the games that are always classified as fighting games are what you see, is what you're seeing in these videos, or in this video, in all my videos. You know, the camera angle is like this. You know, you see two characters 1v1ing. You got health bars, you got meter, whatever. You got, you know, hard, high execution things. Not that, like I said, difficulty has nothing to do with whether a game is a fighting game or not, but most fighting games would have high execution compared to any other, you know, game genre. And yeah, this is what these are fighting games. For the casual person, this is what a fighting game is. And I know I spent half this video talking about what a fighting game is, but I really wanted to include that. I really wanted to include that because, believe it or not, there are some people, like I said, that think WWE is a fighting game. So, I had to put that out there. What fighting game players think fighting games are, right? And I try to keep it as unbiased as possible. And now, time to talk about my favorite fighting games. You know? So, as you're seeing right here, this is DragonBallfighterz. This game is the first fighting game that I learned, and I got really try hard at, and this game made me play other fighting games. This is the game that got me into fighting games. Even though my whole life I've been playing them, I bought Marvel vs. Capcom 2 when it came out on PS3. You know, I played every single Dragon Ball game, and some of them are harder than others, but for the most part, some of them are fighting games, even if they're a little, you know, on the not really competitive side. Yeah, I played Marvel 2 when that came out on PS3. I played Vanilla Marvel 3 when that came out, like, everything. So, what is the best fighting game for me? Now, I can't lie, it's really hard for me to decide, right? But a game like DragonBallfighterz, like I said, was my first, and I do think that it is a great game, right? It is a great game, right? Also, before I played DragonBallfighterz, I also played Mortal Kombat 9 and X. But after I played Fighters, I went back and learned Mortal Kombat X, and what I will say about Mortal Kombat X is, if I was a tryhard at that game when it was relevant, that game definitely has a chance of being my favorite fighting game of all time, right? And some people will say Mortal Kombat 9 is better, but I don't know. Mortal Kombat X has a feeling with the gameplay that no other NetherRealm game has, right? And I think that may be a reason why I was so excited for Mortal Kombat 11, and that's why I was so disappointed by it, right? So, I feel like that says a lot about the fighting games that I like. So if you know fighting games, you'll understand right away. I really liked Mortal Kombat X. I love that game. And then I hated Mortal Kombat 11, right? That right there should tell you the type of fighting games I like. Because there's a lot of people out there that would say MK11 is a better game than MKX, and I strongly disagree. But, you know, some people think that, so that should tell you about the fighting games that I like. Yeah. Another game that I really played a lot is Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. And, you know, I will say some of these things you don't see on my channel as much because I played them really before I had my channel. And I still do play Third Strike sometimes. But, I don't know. Because Third Strike is perfection when it comes to the graphics, the music, the characters. But, I don't know. For me to sit here and say it's my favorite fighting game of all time, it's a very, very... I just can't see myself saying that, right? So funny enough, Mortal Kombat X is not my favorite fighting game. DragonBallfighterz aren't my fighting game. Is not my favorite fighting game, Jesus. Street Fighter 3 Third Strike isn't my favorite fighting game. So what do I think, right? Because if Street Fighter 3 Third Strike isn't my favorite fighting game, that game is perfect when it comes to, like, the whole vibe. Everything matches, you know, the menu, like, everything matches so perfectly in that game. You know, the character select, the stages, the gameplay, the music, everything is so perfectly matched, you know. So what is my favorite fighting game? Is it Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or 3? Unfortunately, I was too young. Uh, like I said, I bought Marvel vs. Capcom 2 when it came out on PS3. That's my first time playing it. I was 5 years old. So I was too young to really enjoy the game. I bought Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Vanilla. I was almost 8 years old. So it's very hard for me to play games like that, right? When you're that young. So it was very hard for me to enjoy it, right? And I just enjoyed seeing the Marvel characters. But obviously going back now, right, I enjoy those games. But Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is very hard to even play nowadays. And Marvel vs. Capcom 3 has literally non-existent netcode. It's impossible to even play the game. And I do like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, but obviously there's no way that game would be in my, favorite fighting game. So, not Third Strike, not Dragonballfighterz, not Marvel vs. Capcom, not Mortal Kombat. So what? Tekken? Honestly, you just saw me learn Tekken for the first time, like really learn the game. You just saw me learn that for the first time like 3 months ago. It's not Tekken. What is it? It's not Soul Calibur. It's not these games. I'm missing one big game here, right? It's not Persona. There's one big game that gave me feelings that I never had for any other game. And that game is Guilty Gear. I would say Guilty Gear is my favorite fighting game of all time. Now, which one? This is going to come as a shocker because I barely uploaded this game on my channel, right? And this is my least played Guilty Gear game. I probably only have like 30 hours in this game, right? So why is it my favorite? Well, the fact that I have 30 hours in the game, that may contribute to why it's my favorite, right? I don't know, right? But my favorite fighting game of all time is Guilty Gear Accent Core. Because I believe that is the one game that has the vibe better than Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, right? Like the menus, the music, the stages, the way the characters look. I think that game has a better vibe than Third Strike, right? That's the only game I think has a better, like, everything matches perfectly and it all fits together so well. I think that's the one game that has a better one. I don't think any of the other Guilty Gear games match like that and have that, like, just everything's in unison. I mean, this is not a shocker. I feel like a lot of people may feel this way, but I think the gameplay, obviously, in Guilty Gear Accent Core is way better than Third Strike, right? Because if you're a combo guy, there are not many combos in Third Strike. Obviously, there's some characters with some big ones, like Urien or something. But, everyone has big combos in Guilty Gear. It's a combo game, everyone... It's fast. It's way faster than Third Strike. It's just, it's just a fast game. And you don't have to deal with parry. And parry is very cool, but it becomes very broken, and it does. Guilty Gear doesn't really have that. And yeah, it is my least played Guilty Gear game. Like I said, I barely played it, but the characters in that game are so perfect. The stages are perfect. The music is perfect. The gameplay is perfect, and like I said, I wasn't going to count this, but it does have perfect netcode. And I recommend that everyone should go play the game. And if you're wondering how expensive the game is on Steam, only on Steam, and it is normally $15, but I will say wait for a sale. It goes on sale a lot for $2. And unfortunately, the reason you don't see me upload the game that much is because I don't have a way of uploading it, because it's only on Steam. So, I don't have a very good computer, and my computer can play the game, but it can't record the game. It would literally explode recording the game. So, I can play the game on my own, but the problem is that I can't upload it, so that's why I don't really play it that much, because if I played it, I would be playing it for nothing. Like, I wouldn't be getting content off of it. I would just be playing it for my own enjoyment, which I do sometimes. It's a fun game. It's like I said, everything comes together so perfectly in that game, and I think they do it better than Third Strike. So yeah, that's really all I gotta say. That is my favorite fighting game of all time. And I will say that this probably will change. My opinions do change on this stuff, but I felt this way for a while. By the way, I haven't been playing this game for a long time. I played this game after Strive came out, like a year ago. So like a year and like 2 months ago or something. So it's not like I've been playing this game for my whole life. But no fighting game has grabbed me the way that game did. Everything's just perfection. It all comes together so perfectly. So yeah, very random video. It's a long video, but I have a whole fighting game channel, and I never talked about what my favorite fighting game is. And I don't talk about this game that much anyways, right? But when I start thinking about my favorite fighting game, that's the one that comes up in my head. And I definitely will like to play it some more on this channel whenever I'm able to. So, with that being said, I want to quickly talk about what I think is the best fighting game objectively. That's the word, right? This is not my favorite fighting game, but I do think it is the best fighting game that someone could play. And there's definitely a few of them, because depending on what you're into, right? But, funny enough, here's Tekken 7. I think the best fighting games, objectively, nowadays, right, that aren't hard to play, right? Because some fighting games are hard to play, you know, like Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, you need a PC to play, because the console version is absolutely garbage, and I would not recommend playing that. So, you have to have, you know, and for Guilty Gear Accent Core, you need a PC. So what is a fighting game that's easy to get into, that's very good? Here are the fighting games that I would say are the best, right? Here you are, Tekken 7. Tekken 7, I'm not even going to say much about it, it's Tekken 7. Guiltygearstrive. And if you think Guiltygearstrive is too easy, that's fine. But like, if you're just some casual that wants to know what the best fighting games are right now in this current day and time, Tekken 7, Guiltygearstrive, and yeah, and Dragonballfighterz. I don't really know what else. These games are the ones that are the most alive. You will always find people playing these games. And there are 3 games that cater to 3 different audiences. If you don't like Guilty Gear, that doesn't mean you won't like Dragonballfighterz. Guiltygearstrive, specifically. If you don't like Guiltygearstrive, you might like Dragonballfighterz. If you don't like Tekken, you might like the other 2 games. I feel like these are the holy trinity of fighting games right now, in this modern day. Because you will like one of these games, right? And if you don't like one of these 3 games, then you probably just don't like fighting games. There are definitely other fighting games out there that you might enjoy, but I just feel like these 3 games... You know what? Add Street Fighter V to that list. I don't like Street Fighter V at all, but add Street Fighter V to that list. Tekken, Dragonballfighterz, Guiltygearstrive, Street Fighter V. You will like one of these games. if you don't play fighting games and you want to, one of these games will be your game, right? Now, here's the good news. If you end up liking all of these games, then you just really like fighting games in general, and you'll like any fighting game, right? But if you only like for example, if you only like Dragon Ball FighterZ, then you might want to play Skullgirls and Marvel vs. Capcom. If you only like Tekken, then you might just want to stick with Tekken, Soul Calibur, stuff like that. If you like Guilty Gear, then you might want to play games like Persona, and any ArcSys game pretty much. That's not Dragon Ball FighterZ, because Dragon Ball FighterZ is pretty different. And yeah, if you like Street Fighter, then you might want to play KOF, the other Street Fighter games. Yeah, any of that. So those 4 games are so very different from each other when it comes to fighting games that if you, like I said, if you don't like one, you will like the other, and if you don't like any of them, you probably just don't like fighting games. And all those games, people are still playing to this day. You can find matches. They all have decent netcode besides Tekken and Dragon Ball FighterZ, but Dragon Ball FighterZ is getting rollback soon. Anyways, you know, I just wanted to have that video out, so, you know, like, subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow. I don't know what I'm playing tomorrow, but we'll whatever it is, we'll, you know, yeah. So, peace.